Spiritfarer came to Game Pass the same day it released, on August 18th, 2020. The game was developed and published by Thunder Lotus, a Canadian indie development team that is currently made up of over 30 people. On December 13th, 2021, it received its third and final content update, and so, we decided it was the perfect time to take a look at the full package offered here. Spiritfarer is a resource management game about dying, and it takes a gentle yet mature approach towards its morbid themes. You are Stella, the new boatman of the River Styx, and it is your job to help guide lost spirits to their final resting place. Everyone you meet has a story to tell and something to put to rest before they are ready to enter the Everdoor and say goodbye forever. Gameplay here can be divided up into a few sections. You have ship construction, quests, exploration, stations, and minigames. There is a wonderful variety here, but at times Spiritfarer gets too ambitious and spreads itself far too thin. Ship construction is at the heart of the game. This is your home, and the home of the spirits aboard. Whilst you start out with a small ship and a few buildings, by the end of the game, you will have a towering hodgepodge of houses, stations, gardens, and communal areas. Buildings can be moved and stacked however you see fit, but certain buildings cannot be destroyed and serve as a permanent reminder of your journey, blending narrative and gameplay in a great way. The ship also has permanent size and ability upgrades, allowing you to chart dangerous waters and pack in more buildings to your community. Quests are given by passengers, and usually fall into either going to a place or building a thing. This is the core gameplay, using resources to complete quests that open paths to craft more complicated resources and so on to advance the narrative. For the most part, these quests are simple enough, and when juggled with the other aspects of gameplay, come together to provide a varied experience for the player. But at around the halfway point of the game, materials have so many steps to be built and are asked for in such large quantities that the game goes from cozy adventure to an annoying grind. Exploration works in tandem with the quests to take you all over the world. You'll come across villages, mountains, cities, and everything in between on your journey. Each island is stuffed with secrets and fun characters to chat with. There are even bus stops to use as fast travel points. Your ship also steers itself, so whilst you're heading through uncharted waters, you can tend to your garden and chat with your passengers, or just relax and take in the music. During nighttime, your boat stops, and you lose the ability to move. When I played through the game initially, I found this frustrating. But after reflection, I understand that this is the game giving you time and space to pause and think about the next step in your journey. You can use everything on your boat at night, so make sure to use that time effectively to prepare for the next day. This is super important for keeping your passengers happy, and happy passengers help you out by giving you materials. There's even a dedicated hug button. We were left wishing that passengers helped in more ways, such as being able to man stations, as it would have helped with the repetitive nature of the gameplay. Stations are at the centre of resource creation. You can grow crops in the garden, smelt ingots in the foundry, cook meals in the kitchen, and so forth. These stations all serve a function, and some, like the garden that can be raided by hungry sheep, make the world feel more connected. Some have frustrations, however. Most frustration comes from crafting limits. This isn't Minecraft, where you can have 1,000 pork chops cooking at once. Here, your kitchen can only cook up to 5 of the same meal, and those meals can burn if unattended. When you've got a full boat of hungry passengers who all like different foods, it can lead to some frustration. Some stations simply feel like busy work. The Crusher is most notable for this, as it boils down to smashing the X button repeatedly for a moment. The Smithy is the only station that stands out as being badly designed. With other stations, there are clear audio and visual cues to show that you are doing the right thing, such as the loom lighting up or the dial in the foundry. The smithy has no such cues, but when every sheet you can make there has a different right feel, it all just comes apart. Finally, there are resource collection minigames, and some of these are seriously epic. Each minigame is tied to a passenger, and as such serves as another narrative tie into the journey you've been on. My favourite was absolutely Thunder Harvest, which has you jumping around your boat and catching lightning in bottles to one of the best pieces of music in the soundtrack. Where the stations are mostly timing minigames, these are all about movement and provide a great incentive for the player to keep their ship organised and easy to traverse. Some minigames struggle to make the movement rewarding, however. Both the Pulsar and Ectoplasm minigames lack any sort of cue to let you know when and where things will move. It becomes a frustrating guessing game, whereas the Comet and Jellyfish minigames are fun and beautiful because they keep it simple and allow the player to make plans. In the end, the gameplay of Spiritfarer is very tightly woven. Systems feed into each other and everything feels properly connected. But with the game clocking in at around 20 hours to complete, the simplicity and restrictions of everything absolutely overstay their welcome. And as such, we're opting to give the gameplay a 3 out of 5. With bouncy, hand-drawn animations and painted environments, Spiritfarer feels like a cozy dream. From the way Stella marvels at magic oven gloves, glides with her hat, and hugs her friends, everything has this sense of warmth and love, and it is simply infectious. This is a world I enjoyed simply existing in, and I frequently found myself just wandering around, looking at the details in the environment, and just taking in the atmosphere. All of this is backdropped by a calming soundtrack of strings, chimes, and a piano. This is what a quietude in your soul sounds like. Calm notes drift in at the start of the day and propel you to adventure when the need arises. When the soundtrack needs to be turned up to 11, it delivers with booming tracks like Thunder Harvest and Feeding the Dragon. It is incredibly impressive that one motif has so much range, and I look forward to seeing what composer Max LL does next. There is only one bad track in the entire soundtrack, and it seems that the developers knew this, as it has its own option to turn it off. Really great self-awareness on their part. The art direction here is simply stellar. Pun intended. This is one of the coziest game worlds we've had the fortune to experience, and it tangibly feels like a crisp winter day with the warmth of blankets and hot cocoa. There's a true warmth here, and any game that can elicit a feeling like that more than deserves a 5 in art direction. At its core, Spiritfarer is a game about dying and what it means to say goodbye to loved ones forever. The narrative touches on some very heavy themes, and we applaud it for not shying away from what it sets out to do. Even more impressive is that these themes are presented in a warm way that make the game comforting to play, as opposed to something like Outer Wilds, which tackles its existential themes by having you overcome your fears. Each passenger that boards your ship has a story to tell. Triumphs, regrets, and stories of a life well lived permeate your ship, and when you help your friends come to peace, they will ask you to take them to the Everdoor. The beauty here is that you don't have to say goodbye until you're ready. You will form a connection to these characters, and saying goodbye will be hard, so take your time, but know that goodbye has to come eventually. The overall narrative comprises your passenger's effect on you, Stella, and it does culminate in a greatly satisfying ending. Despite the lull linked to gameplay in the latter half of the game, by the time you're wrapping everything up, your ship will be a towering ghost town of memories, and that last walkthrough of the boat you've built is a solemn one. The big narrative problem we came across was that of too many passengers. Sometimes stories were spread so thin, and we would forget certain plot lines by the time we'd gotten back to them. We also found it hard to connect with some characters if their personal struggles didn't resonate with us, as the passengers primarily just ask you for food and quests and don't feel like an active part of your ship. Despite this, when the stories do resonate with you, they become the central pillar of the game. I loved some of the characters, hated others, but the game does a great job at making you feel things. and I cried at the goodbye with the passengers I felt most connected with. Unfortunately, the game doesn't have the narrative consistency to score more than a 4, but this is absolutely a story that will shine amongst the rest if it connects with you. Spiritfarer is a full, feature-rich package with a variety of gameplay contained within. Whilst we had our problems with the gameplay in function, we must state that there is a lot here, and this variety is polished to a shine. We encountered no bugs during our playthrough. Everything worked seamlessly. You also get free save files, so you can play through the game again without losing that original playthrough, and the game can be played co-op, with one player controlling the cat. They can't talk to passengers or turn in quests, but they can work in the stations and help with keeping the ship running. The game has no voice acting, so every conversation is subtitled by default, and the size of these text boxes can be changed. You can also turn off screen shake and vibrations, but that is where the accessibility options end. Audio has sliders for master, music, and sound effects, but that's it. There are also major language options. Controls can be completely remapped for Stella and Daffodil separately. Really good stuff to see. Finally, there are text tutorials with pictures for every aspect of the game except for the resource minigames. Good stuff, and with the simplicity of the games mentioned, I don't think this exclusion is detrimental, but it would be nice to have. Spiritfarer is a complete and plentiful indie offering. This doesn't have the range of accessibility features as something like Halo Infinite, but everything here is here for a reason, and we cannot fault it. Thunder Lotus should be proud of themselves for both providing and adding onto a full package, and for that they get the full score of 5. Our playthrough of Spiritfarer took us just shy of 23 hours with a completion rate of 72%. At the 10 to 15 hour mark, we felt the game was overstaying its welcome, and even though the ending does reel everything back into a satisfying conclusion, it would have been nicer to get there with less tedium. There is a lot of busy work here, and whilst it starts off as charming and fun, it soon becomes grindy and some of the spark is lost in the process. There was only one notable quest that felt like a major disrespect to the player's time, and that is the quest where you are asked to grow 100 of something. Up until this point, the game had been sincere throughout, so imagine my surprise when I spent all of my money to buy 100 seeds, got to planting and harvest only to be told by the passenger in question that they want 100 of something else instead. To top it off, they didn't want those 100 things either, but a much smaller amount of a third item. This one quest left a very sour taste in my mouth, and actually ruined the passenger goodbye that followed. Thunder Lotus do respect our hard drives however. With an install size of just over 6GB, this is a big game with a small footprint. Similar to Stardew Valley, gameplay is broken up into days that last about 20 minutes. You can keep playing through the in-game nights, but if you want to play on your lunch break or just before bed, the game does a good job of allowing for short play sessions as well as longer ones. Spiritfarer respects your time when it comes to allowing for varied play sessions, especially as you can save and quit whenever you'd like. But the gameplay itself chooses cutesy and drawn out over something more tight-knit. And whilst the game is far more about the journey than the destination, we'd have preferred a tighter, more fleshed out 15-hour experience than the almost 25-hour experience we got. Whilst we're giving the commitment here a 3 out of 5, we understand that you might appreciate this narrative style, and we want to hear your opinions in the comments. Spiritfarer is worth your time. It will provide perspective on a hard reality we all must face, and does so with warmth and dignity. The game does overstay its welcome, but by the time everything ties together in the end, the journey is worth it.
Take your hand and guide you through all the steps one takes to move on to a place